So this was basically the most requested game that I look at Out of Bounds in 2026. I guess Spider-Man PlayStation 1 has some real staying power because here we are today looking at the game, and I can now understand why. I've never played it before, but I'm seeing a lot of polish here. Like, for example, even in the demo screens, there's this area that is made just for this one little scene where Spider-Man shoots a web ball right at the screen. Taking the camera off its axis, though, can show you a lot of cool things. One is that there's like a little silhouette object to make the circle for the James Bond thing going on here. But then there's a square behind that, and that square is attached to a giant black plane. That giant black plane is used to cover up the giant white plane that is behind Spider-Man. So something that looks super simple is actually kind of elaborate. So never judge a book by its cover. I don't think that's how that analogy works.
JJ.
But hey, let's take a look through every single level and see what we can find for Spider-Man on PlayStation 1 for Boundary Break.
I'm already at full health.
Yeah, look out, lady.
Oh my goodness!
Get out of my way, nerd.
So this was an elaborate scene that I thought was really cool to talk about. This is when Spider-Man is like chasing down Venom, the two of them crash into a building, and then most of this scene, the camera is just sort of on the outside, and you're left to just kind of have imagination of what's going on. But it's really cool inside because you can see both Venom and Spider-Man are in there. Spider-Man kind of hangs out in the same place that basically brought him into, though there is something really, really cool here. There's a part of this cutscene where you hear Spider-Man say, "Ow, my head, ow, my head, ow, my head, ow, my head." And if you take the camera inside of the building when you do that, you could see Spider-Man actually jumping into the ceiling and hitting his head. So there you go. There's a legitimate reason why he would be saying this. You can also see that for the most part, Venom just sort of hangs out here. Then, of course, they get transported to this little part right here where the two of them are chasing each other, and you can see that without using any sort of camera tools. But then it ends with Venom jumping out of the building, and this is what it looks like before he jumps out of there. And now this is Mysterio. And a lot of people wanted me to just look at Mysterio. I wish there was a lot more to reveal, but I can show you what the entire large model looks like in one shot, which is really cool. And I'll still take the camera inside of Mysterio's bubble and show you if there's a head inside. Sadly, you would be able to know for sure by just looking at him in the game. There is a transparency on his bubble, and inside that bubble is just two textures representing rings, so there's no modeled head or anything quite like that. Doc Ock, on the other hand, has some really cool things going on here. I really love his tentacles. Is that okay to say? Yeah, that should be fine. The reason why I like his tentacles is because it has a really solid effect. Just the fact that it's just completely flat, but in most angles that you view this at, it looks convincingly 3D. Yes, it exists in a 3D space, but I mean, his tentacles just straight up look like they're 3D cones when they're not. This is due to really good shading on them, so when they twist and sort of bend and stuff like that, it just looks like it's supposed to be there at almost any given angle. And it's only really at the joints that you can kind of see that that illusion's a bit ruined. But in case you wanted to see it for yourself, here is the model extracted and put on Models Resource, which, by the way, modelsresource.com is an amazing website that you should definitely check out if you ever want to just view some models. A lot of them can just be moved around and looked at on the website itself now, which is really impressive, and that's what we're doing here. But as I was saying here, if you look at it from this angle, you can see that they're completely flat, which saves a lot on resources. And would you believe it, this game has LOD models, 3 tiers in fact. So for this bank thug over here, you can see that the lowest level of detail is just an absolutely hilariously low poly model. Is it holding a gun or a stick? You be the judge. But when you get a little bit closer, there is a second tier, and this is where you start to see some texture work at least being applied. And it just looks a little silly. The build almost reminds me of Juno from Jet Force Gemini. No offense to that game, it's fantastic. But when Spider-Man gets close enough, we finally have fullest level of detail to this character model. You really do take these PlayStation 1 models for granted until you see that it can get even less detailed than this. Here's another quick one, the first enemy of the game. Now, there is a part of the game where you're underwater and there is a sky dome that is just all water-based. It's cool. I chose this one room here because it's just kind of neat to see an interior with no windows, and suddenly you see this massive sky dome that you normally wouldn't see from this room. And right at the start of the game, if you looked at any question mark, Black Cat would show up, fall from the sky, and then jump out of frame yet again. And I just wanted to show you how much Black Cat there is before she disappears, which is actually quite a bit, if you ask me. Like, it would stand to reason that you could probably cull out or get rid of the model, like, immediately after she gets out of frame. There's a lot to see before she disappears. Also, I do want to apologize. The models, for whatever reason, sort of track differently on the camera than the environments themselves. That's why you just see them like high in the sky like this. Also, the fight with Carnage, there seems to be an error on the model itself. Now, this doesn't happen in all cases, especially like when you're viewing the models from the menu screen, but in the fight here, it looks like the top of his head doesn't seem to connect properly. So there's just a giant hole on top, which I found to be really, really bizarre. But yeah, like I said earlier, if you look at him in the model viewer, he seems to be fine. It's just for whatever reasons for the boss fight only. Also, you might be confused why I'm showing you this. Literally, I had a community post and someone said that I should take the camera up to J. Jonah James's mustache. Now, that user did say JJJ's, so technically they could have been referring to this character model instead, which is one of the developers at Neversoft. There's a code you could put in to replace him with JJ, and just to make sure that wasn't who he was referring to, I decided to include both. The developer's mustache is way more detailed than J. Jonah Jameson's, or a lot of character models that are in this game, to be frank with you. It seems like they put a lot more love and attention into this developer model than a lot of the actual models for the characters in the game. But now, a really cool model that we can take a look at is this helicopter. If we take the camera inside of the helicopter, you can see the pilots inside, and they are just really, really low detailed pixel silhouettes. But I want to take the camera right up to it so that you get a chance to see it for yourself without all of the aliasing and weird effects on the PlayStation 1. Also, to conquer a lot of your childhood fears, someone wanted me to look at the Doc Ock Carnage from far away, and there's not too much to see. I guess, it is a little bit extra creepy with the fact that you can see like a water texture moving outside the boundaries. But everything's just a little less scary when pulled out from far away.
Golden. The bed goes up here.
Also, some of you might not know this, but there is a secret hideout for the Green Goblin. If you find it and go inside, you can find all sorts of unique textures, like for example, jack-o'-lanterns, Green Goblin's flying machine, as well as his mask and stuff. It's a really cool nod to him. But since you can find this on your own, we gotta make this boundary break related, right? Well, uniquely, this shelf over here has a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns, and if we take the camera and clip it just right, you can see that the glowing effect is pulled off by having a separate sheet behind the face of these jack-o'-lanterns. And the actual faces of the jack-o'-lanterns work like a real jack-o'-lantern in a sense, because they are just alpha layers that are sort of carved into the texture, which allows you to see through it. Also, viewers wanted me to look outside of the Scorpion fight because there's a cityscape out there. And really all we're doing here is just looking at the Sky Dome that is normally a little hard to see because of all the panic you kind of have to induce yourself with to win this fight without Jameson perishing. Also, if you never noticed, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is actually on the TV screen here. In the sewer level, if we take the camera out, we can see that there is water levels stored outside the boundaries. These are used later in the level, but all three of them seem to be stacked on top of each other, almost like umbrellas. It's so weird. Also, there's this cool chain effect that's used in the game. Moving the camera out and shifting it will show you the actual full texture without even having to clip through the wall. Again, the camera is not the best for this particular game, but still, as a result of the camera not working properly, we get a nice, easy, clean, full view of the chains. Also, I wanted to pan the camera out while you're on this building here and show you how much of it's rendered all at once, which is surprisingly a lot of it compared to the rest of the game. There is a lot of culling and stuff like that to save on resources for a game that is as beefy and as ambitious as Spider-Man. But for this stage, I don't know. I guess they just didn't need to do it. So a lot of the building can be shown in one shot. And then for the subway level, I wanted to show you a couple of Easter eggs. The subway cart actually has a number on it. It's 7-6. And if you look at it from behind, it's more like a flipped 6-7. Also on top of the cart, for some reason, it's 69. Now it is moving really, really fast, but I did want to show you this Easter egg for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, as well as an image of the lizard. There's also just a weird ad for Yorkshire Pantry, and it has a slogan of good food from Yorkshire. And the last detail I'll show you is really, really hard to see. It's on like the corner of the subway, and it says in the faintest of letters, tomfoolery footwear. I'm gonna guess it was meant to be like a subway ad, and then it just didn't quite make sense to put it on this corner, and so the graphics designer had to sort of make it blend in camouflage with the subway. Not entirely sure by that choice, but it was definitely a really tough one to see. And that's all I got for now, but hey, there is a Spider-Man PlayStation 4 episode that Snipey did way back in the day, who was a co-host that I adore. If you want to see what he did way back in the day, I'm going to leave a link on the screen right here, and you can also take a look at it in the video description if you're watching it on your computer, which I find out that most of you don't. A lot of you watch this on your TVs. That's so crazy to me. I just want to really quickly thank my community for asking me to cover this game. Never played it growing up, and covering it for your sake made me realize that this is a really cool banger of a game that I should have played back in the day. So thanks for letting me experience it, and all of you, take care.